Hey guys, I didn't mean to be late. My computer says 4:37 and my phone says 4:32. So, for anybody who may have seen my post, I'm a couple minutes late, but thank you for coming. I always get so nervous, but I'm going to try to jump right in, shake the nerves. I have a little bit of a cold. I don't have, the whole thing or anything like that, just a little nasally. So stay with me, forgive me. Let me make sure this is turned all the way up because I had it muted the past couple days. Okay. Hopefully I'm talking. And pardon me if I do this. I'm going to do it right away because it might happen. So forgive me, please. Anyway, I put a lot of work. We put a lot of work into this video because there's a lot of people to introduce, and even this video won't cover all the people. But again, for those who are just stumbling upon this video and don't know anything about all my other videos, I'm here to disclose the truth within the Prince Rogers Nelson or Prince investigation. I use the name Prince Rogers Nelson. That was his so-called given birth name, and then the media will always refer to Prince. I say that because there's at least two investigations. The death of Prince Rogers Nelson was written off as an unwitnessed accidental fentanyl toxicity death within the records. Basically, I think a self-dosed. I'm still pondering that, so I'm not saying anything conclusive on that, but oh, shoot, you guys, I'm going to have to plug in my computer. I see that it's dying. Hold on one second. So sorry. Leave it to me. I said I would be all ready, but you just can't come here and get perfection. We're all works in progress. 1 second, it's not plugged into the wall. Sorry. I'm so sorry. It's because I'm me. I can't blame it on anything else. It's because I'm me. I was going to say it's because I'm sick. It's because I'm this or that. It's not. It's because I'm me. Thank you for bearing with me. Just fast forward through that part. Okay, so anyway, a lot of paperwork, shuffling, and everything going into this file, and I wrote it down all on the whiteboards to try to jog my memory. So I'll try to look at you and look at some things today too. The investigations is what I was saying. They're plural. They're multiple. Not only am I saying so, if you read into the file, as I've discussed before, all of the investigations, the ICR numbers begin with 16. They're either 16 12559 16-0 and so on. The other ones goes up to 3 zeros. And each file I have broken down. It's been a big investigation on the investigation. So we all knew that what we heard in the media couldn't have been true. So that's what I'm here to disclose. And most people wonder why the lie, why the mass media lie. And that is because the plan is so big that they had only a short moment to make up that mass media lie. The plan that they had, it was thrown a curveball at the end based on the fact that they found a body that was stiff when they sold the media story. But anyway, sorry, I wander. The main thing is this, you guys, and I want to share with you this, that all through the files, okay, Phaedra. Okay, let me start here. From 2012 to 2016, you have the entry of a bunch of major players. Phaedra, who is barely talked about in the story that you would read in People magazine, Phaedra Ellis Lampkins. She is the one that is credited for winning back, I believe on Wikipedia, winning back Prince's music rights. And note that I said Prince because anyway, we'll get into that later when we talk person by person. So enter Phaedra. From 2012 and Renville, Wellington, 2013, when Kim Pratt went from Total to Premier Transportation in 2014. Then again, Phaedra Ellis Lampkin is listed as not entering until 2013 and 14, but it was Crystal Hetner or something like that said she was there in 2012 and that's why she quit. Anyway, Renville Willington, who entered in 2013, popped up again because he was doing the Welcome to Canada tour with Prince. But then he popped back up from the best of my research in 6 of 2015 when the Obama concert took place, as well as the Go phone that was opened in the file. They provide phone records that are jukey anyway, but the ones that they do provide, I try to make heads or tails of. But during that, you'll know that Kirk was known to have a Go phone, but then it's not actually Kirk's Go phone. Through the investigation in reading the file, you find out that it belongs to Renville Wellington. And the interesting thing about that is the majority of Renville's phone calls went to Kirk Johnson, as well as phone numbers to New York and Canada. Okay. And even more interestingly than that is the pharmacist that called Paisley Park 28 times, Andrew Reinholtz, on the 21st. He's from New York. And Canada, of course, you can get into from New York very easily. For those who don't live in the Midwest or know, there's tunnels and bridges, and you can go from Michigan to Canada and New York, and it's very easy. So, interesting too that the day that the Go phone was opened in the file, the date is 6/9/15, and so if you do that in the gematria, it's obviously 666 because 5 + 1 = 6. So. The plan, you guys. Marone enters in 2015. Kirk initially contacted Dr. Schulenberg in November of 2015 per Schulenberg's own testimony, even though Kirk's is different. And though there is no testimony of Kirk on record, there is some in the file today that we'll be sharing. Now, also, what had happened in 2013, you guys, because again, it's 2012 through 2016 that all these people entered and the plan really took heavy duty. What also happened in 2013 was, if you read in the Carver County Sheriff's investigation files, you'll see that the lady, it was 5/22/13. There was a lady that called in that said she was being raped at Paisley Park, and they mismatched the phone numbers. And then, long story short, Carver County wrote it off as what's called swatting. If you don't know what that is, have a son with a computer, he'll tell you. People got into like calling police to other people's house and making it look like by their IP address and various things like that, that somebody was calling from a different address. So it was called swatting. Now, the important thing about that is, from my belief, is that's when they were setting up the Jabber phone system. Jabber was implemented, I believe it was Ann Tollefson that takes credit for that in the file. She does the state and regulatory affairs for the phone company Integra, but Integra is an LLC as well, just like everything else in the file, which is going to be your limited liability company, or there's a lot of DBAs, LLCs. If you're not familiar with those things, it's the only reason that I am is just because I used to be in the mortgage business, and it's another way of skirting taxes and setting up false identities. And around the time Phaedra entered and took credit for winning back all of Prince's NPG publishing, yada, yada, I believe it says 965 songs in the paperwork. Around the time she came in with Diane Frappier and the other attorney's name, she was on her Facebook and Instagram. Phaedra was telling people to come on. She had a job for them selling to the government, and she was in public relations. And she also specialized in setting up like home health care services for people who needed home health care, which is interesting because Recovery Without Walls is actually set up as a home-based doctor-assisted program in such cases, which is why Howard Kornfeld was known to have hung a do not disturb sign on his door. He was there. Anyway, we're not talking about him right now. Articles of incorporation, you guys, this is important. Please listen up. Let me take a swig. I try to make these terms understandable. Like, I'm not, like I said, I play it on YouTube. I have some knowledge and I try to work with it. Articles of incorporation, from what I understand, you can get a lawyer, you file them, and Phaedra filed articles of incorporation initially, to the best of my research, on 3/6 of 2014. Okay. But the interesting thing is this, you guys, she did that with a California address because, as Kirk Johnson mentioned, and when he was being interviewed, Phaedra he said she left her position. He didn't say if she was fired or what, but he said she left her position and came back. So what she had done is gone out to California, maybe set up Recovery Without Walls, where her sister received services prior to them contacting Howard on the 20th. But they don't tell you that either, but I will. Anyway, articles of incorporation were set up 3/6/14 with an address of Telegraph Road, I believe. No, excuse me, Wilshire. It doesn't matter. That 2014 articles of incorporation, because they had a good standing on that articles of incorporation, I'm assuming because of whatever they were doing in California, they then could bring that article of incorporation out here and say with the 7801 Audubon address that was their main office, even though that wasn't their main office. That's just how paperwork works when you have a lawyer, people that know how to cut and paste. And when you're part of the plan of biblical proportions, this chair, I'm not going to fall again. Maybe I will. I don't know. Anyway, so what am I saying, you guys? That if you're a listener, you know that back in the day that Prince, I think NPG, Prince and NPG came on talking about Love Sexy. And then in 91 with Graffiti Bridge, Kirky J, he was one of the dancers. Kirk Johnson was. But what I mean to say is that was like in the 90s, and not a lot of people that would listen to Prince on the radio would know about the NPG, the separate albums like The Chocolate Invasion, The Slaughterhouse, Exodus, Gold Nigga. I'm not sure. And I said it with an A because that's the name of the album. Wikipedia will tell you that music was geared toward a more urban people, but it's actually really a lot of good, deep messages in the lyrics. So go check them out. But anyway, I believe what had happened, and I'm not 100% certain, is that because Kirky J was there at the time, he had a lot of insight on NPG and this and that and the other, and then Phaedra and the plan and this and that. They figured out a way to finagle in there because Prince stopped using his name Prince when he would say Prince is dead in 93. And then somehow, probably by him disowning his name and changing it to a symbol, etc., they were able to say, well, that's not him anymore. And now we own the intellectual rights to Prince, because they established a clone Prince. And the whole purpose was to get him in there. That's part of the plan. I know it might sound, this or that, but it's cool. That's what we're here for, to learn the truth. Truth is stranger than fiction. Believe you me. Anyway, lost my train of thought. Music Publishing LLC. And then when you do your investigation online, you find that after the death on 4/21, that Phaedra filed paperwork to make sure that she was taken off and held under no repercussions of said blah blah blah. But at the same time, it didn't matter anyway, because all they were doing was signing over trustees for this and that, and Bremer Bank behind the scenes, who's owned by like Rothschilds or something like that, Bremers that go way back in the bloodline. So check that out. Anyway, there's some main players for you guys. I'm going to try to stay on track. So what I want to say with the LLCs and the DBAs, anybody can get one. Like if you apply for an EIN number, say you're a landlord, okay, and you have rental properties, and you go and say, hey, I want to be a landlord, I will have to get an EIN number. It's one of the ways, and it's 9 digits, just like your social number, et cetera, et cetera. It's really not as hard as people think. You just need somebody that knows how to do it, which is how they finagled a lot of the paperwork in through the Carver County court system afterwards by Well, we're not there yet. But anyway, main players, you guys. Who did I have next? One moment. Theo London wasn't on my list of main players because I was never really aware of who he was. Maconi had Theo London. I'm not even sure who he is. But during the research, what I found truly interesting, you guys, was he was being researched, and he was asked, this officer asked him, I asked Theo if he was at the Atlanta concert, as he mentioned moving from Minneapolis to Atlanta after he resigned. Theo told me he was not at the concert, but he, listen, he was not at the concert, but he had set up the after party, which Prince did not attend. Theo told me he flew back to Minneapolis the day Prince died and that he had observed some things he believed were suspicious. I asked Theo what he observed that he believed was suspicious. This is a little off subject, but we're going to go there anyway. Theo told me that when he arrived at Paisley Park after the sheriff's office cleared the scene on the day Prince died. It doesn't say when, it just says on the day Prince died, which is kind of weird for legal technical paperwork. It seems like it should cite the day each and every time for lack of confusion. Anyway, cleared the scene on the day that Prince died, that Kirk Johnson was there with Phaedra Lampkins and Phaedra's attorney and best friend Diane Frappier, talking about cleaning something on the rug. Theo told me the area Kirk was concerned with was in the entryway hallway, past the staircase that goes upstairs and prior to the elevator. According to Theo, Kirk had given direction to someone to clean a stain. Theo told me he did not know what the stain was. Theo told me he also heard Phaedra talking about locking down Paisley Park the following day and that they would be going through and cleaning up rooms. Theo said Phaedra asked Kirk who was the last one on Prince's computer and mentioned that she, Phaedra, would go through Prince's computer and take care of it. Theo mentioned that Kirk had the password for Prince's laptop computer and explained how it was Theo who bought the laptop for Prince when they were in Turks and Caicos. I asked Theo if he knew the password for Prince's computer, and he said it used to be Peter Bravestrong, Prince's alias name. Now, several interesting points. Whilst reading the media, we're told that Prince got in the limos and did these various things and this and that and told Kim Pratt he was feeling sick with the flu and this and that and the other, but never did they mention, nary a mention of an after party that Theo just said that he planned. Okay, but that would explain one of the reasons why, even though the media tells us that the plane went down between the 14th and the 15th there at the 14th, 15th a.m., they also report that Prince went home that same night and tweeted Controversy, the song Controversy. You can look it up. But when you read through the paperwork, we find out that there was a Prince at the Moline Hospital until 9:34 or 9:43, which would coincide with the time of the 911 phone call, which is interesting too. But anyway, that he stayed the night there. So my point is, the whole thing about the after party, you guys, is there wasn't supposed to be an after party with someone who was feeling so ill, down with the flu, concerned about that they were a drug addict and this and that and the other. There's no mention of an after party. So there's that, first of all. The other things about Theo being there, flying back from Atlanta, so he says, after the Carver County cleared the scene, if it was a murder-death type investigation, no witnesses would be just allowed to lollygag back around on the scene, whether they were employees or this or that or the other. And if they are, I don't know, I don't want to be in this world anyway, but that's crazy. But my point is, if it was being investigated as a suicide, then what are you going to do? You're going to ask people to volunteer their statements. And then when you read through the files, you find out that one file says that Kirk asked the officer if he could stay on scene with his family because he didn't want to leave. But when you read the other file, Kirk was being ushered around the premises shortly after the death when the police arrived, because he was introducing himself as the head of security and he had keys to all the places. And it says right in there that he walked around. So I'm wondering how many Princes and how many Kirks. And you getting what I'm saying about body doubles, invasion of the body snatchers, you guys? Anyway, the other thing is the luggage, you guys. The whole fact that the luggage that they supposedly found in the bedroom with the medication in it that had Peter Bravestrong on it, the alias name, this, that, the other, Phaedra and Prince and Kirk, or excuse me, they're sitting there talking about the password being Peter Bravestrong. And they had access to the computer. And there's a lot more things about the missing information, but I'm going to leave that there. So because Theo, I didn't know when he actually made entry. I wanted to put that there. Also, it's interesting when you read the Beautiful Ones book, I can't see, that Dan mentions that Prince sought publication after publishing several photo books. Now, I don't know about you guys. Maybe I missed something. I don't know what photo books I missed, but I can guarantee you that they were the ones that Marone was selling out of her purse when they busted her with money and cash and photo books in her purse. And then we have, I think her name is Vera, I can't think of her name. She said that she was buying CDs from Marone. So what am I saying, you guys? Clones all around Paisley Park doing dirty deeds done dirt cheap, filming them, getting them on film, lots of things, but we're going to stay on track with the main players. Before I do that, I'm going to say something really trippy. I always read these files, and it never ceased to amaze me because they would read as such, and it would say, for instance, Kirk said he went down the hall. Kirk said da 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 da. And it's like they're taking one sentence and then splicing it with another sentence. And like I told you, there's cutting and pasting going on. But what I'm getting at really is that I call Kirk now PK for Prince Kirk, because Kirk is something else. When Kirk is being interviewed, Kirk is the all-around good buddy, the one that's sold in the media as being Prince's longtime best buddy, been around since, what does he say? In Kirk's own words, let's discover what Kirk says about himself. Pardon. 421 at 11:50, I met with Kirk Johnson. Met with Prince's bodyguard, Kirk Anthony Johnson, who agreed to provide a statement. Kirk said he first met Prince in 1984 as a dancer in Purple Rain. Now that one, you guys, I've been watching since I was 13, basically since Purple Rain. So did I miss something? Where was Kirk a dancer in Purple Rain? Was he I don't know. Did I miss something? Please tell me. I'm not, if he was, I just don't know. Nonetheless, it made me chuckle. Anyway. He met him in 1984. Kirk said from 89 to 92, he was a band member. 92 to 96, he assisted with drums and producing. That would have been the NPG era, Kirky J, etc. From 97 to 2000, Kirk was again a drummer in Prince's band. Kirk said he left for a short while to pursue his career as a health and fitness instructor from 2000 to 2009. That would be with Lifetime Fitness. You can see it on his Instagram. Anyway, from 2009 to present, which would have been 2016, he was hired as Prince's building manager and security manager, meaning he had access to all security, okay, all parts of the building, and keys to do so and the freedom to do so, okay? So, anyway, here, Kirk said Prince's manager was Phaedra Ellis Lampkins, who had taken another job in California a year prior, that would have been 2015, and had not yet been replaced. So by Kirk mentioning that Phaedra took another job in California, she hadn't been replaced, that door was still open, for her to finagle back in there with the friends and so forth. Kirk said the only people other than himself who frequent PP on a daily basis was Marone, Ray Roberts, blah, blah, blah. And we're going to get to him too. I tell you this because I want to lay the background on the information that Kirk actually did provide. I asked Kirk about Prince's medical history. Kirk said he did not know all of Prince's health background, but he started to figure it out when he was flying back from Atlanta and that he passed out. Prince. It says Prince in parentheses. Anyway, and it scared me so. That's what Kirk said. Kirk said Prince had a concert in Atlanta on Thursday, April 14th. Kirk said they flew down there for the concert and headed back right after. See what I mean about the choppy sentences? And that's how the Disney program Lying, the Art of Lying, right in front of your face, because I'm going to read it again. Kirk said Prince had a concert in Atlanta on Thursday, April 14th, 2016. Kirk said they flew down there for the concert and headed back right after. Kirk said Prince had one of his best concerts. The concert ended around 11:30. Kirk said he, Prince, and Judith Hill boarded the plane to head back to Minneapolis. Kirk said he was asleep when Judith woke him up and told Kirk. That's what I mean. Kirk said he was asleep when Judith woke him up and told Kirk. Who talks like that? Who talks like that? Something's wrong with Prince. Kirk said he found Prince was unconscious. Kirk said he tried to wake Prince up but couldn't and requested the plane make an emergency landing. Now, if you missed it on my other videos, you guys, that plane descended, I believe, 45,000 feet in 17 minutes. That's pretty fast. I'm waiting for a pilot. I need to get a hold of a pilot so I can find out just how fast. It concerns me how fast that was. Anyway, so my point is Kirk has been around for a long, long, long time. Now, the media will tell you that Kirk went to Dr. Schulenberg to ask for a prescription for Prince because Prince wanted to maintain his his privacy. That happens with all the words. But Kirk is telling us he didn't know anything about his history, obviously, and I got way more. So the files will tell you that Kirk contacted Dr. Schulenberg originally in November of 2015, which I mentioned earlier, which coincides with all the other things. And he says that Kirk says that Prince never asked him to ask Dr. Schulenberg for a prescription right here in the file. I just don't have it in front of me. But Dr. Schulenberg and the officer says right here in the statement that it was contrary to what Dr. Schulenberg said, that when Kirk called, that he said it was for Prince. Anyway, they continue to refer PK. You guys, Kirk was not only the mastermind behind getting this medication, the way it was set up with Renville Wellington and the airplane ride on the 14th and 15th. You have to know something. The officer says this about the 14th and the 15th. Not only did Theo London say that they planned the after party, but the officer says that Kirk's AT&T phone records are provided in Universal Time, UTC time, which is 5 hours ahead of Central Time and 4 hours behind Eastern. I might have written that down wrong. So what he meant to say is when he was going through Kirk's phone records from the 14th to the 15th, they had to decipher them because they were in the UTC time, which, again, playing an expert on YouTube, that could put him in New York and or Canada on a private jet that can fly the Dassault Falcon 990 that they had the emergency landing in, was owned and chartered by Lifetime Aviation, or Jet Speed was another name they used for it. But the point is, the Lifetime Fitness and Lifetime Aviation Well, they were both flying around these jets. Kirk was using them. The pilot says his name is Betchholt. Which isn't that interesting because isn't that the Summit Institute in West Virginia, the Betchel Institute? Isn't that where they had the Boy Scout Jamboree that in 2013 where they did the in 2013, you guys, off subject, there was I could have swore it was the Betchel Institute Summit or something like that, Betchel in West Virginia. It used to be like an Army Navy base or something like that. They made it self-sustaining, et cetera, and all this grand thousands and millions and gajillions of dollars. And then they had the Boy Scout Jamboree there in 2013. And I publicized on my Facebook that in 2013 they did what do you call it? A virus thing where they gave all the boys a virus with their like phones or whatever, and then they figured out how the virus would spread during this Boy Scout Jamboree. It was like the big to-do. It was like there's like when you have a prom and there's like a theme. It was the theme of the Boy Scout Jamboree was how viruses spread in 2013, which would be the same timing as all this was going on, which is super weird that just popped into my mind that the name could be a pure coincidence, but you never know. The pilot's name was Betchholt, and he said that he had flown with Kirk numerous times for Lifetime Fitness as he would fly out as a personal trainer. Again, on his Instagram, you can see him on there with all kinds of women. Kirk, I think he's about 5'7", 5'8", tops 5'8". And, well, I'll get to that later. But what I wanted to say was that Mark Metz's wife, I can't think of her name right now, was on his Facebook, Kirk's Facebook, in 2016 during the investigation saying, "Oh, look at you, you handsome devil." Now, if that's not fraudulent, I don't know what is, because obviously Mark Metz, Mickey Mouse killers play Mickey Mouse games with their 33rd degree selves. It's just all wrong. Anyway, more about Kirk and the medication, you guys. Prince Rogers Nelson was not, as the media sold, taking medication for hip pain. Woe is me. I'm a rock and roll artist. My hip is in pain. And, let's just hypothetically say for a minute that he was. Science works on hypothesis all the time. Anyway, let's say that he was. Let's say that Prince was an addict, as the media sells. Do you know how many addicts I've known in my life? In fact, I had back surgery, torn labrums in my hip, and spent many a year on some massive doses of medication. I've used fentanyl patches. I passed out in my bathtub and had to be taken to the emergency room because of my respiratory distress. So I have familiarity with all of this firsthand. And there's no coincidence in that either. But sorry, off subject. Oh, the medication is sold that Prince Rogers Nelson was an addict. People who are taking that as an addict do not function at the level that Prince does. You know what I mean? I don't care. Your skin is going to be messed up. They show him all skinny and everything at the end, but that's not what narcotics do to you. You can't function. You're sleeping all the time. If you're using fentanyl and morphine and heavy duty stuff like that, you'd be nodding out and drooling all the time. You're definitely not going to be up performing. And Dan Peipenbring described Prince as glowing. So I don't know. I don't know many addicts whose skin glow. Do you? And I'm not trying to be rude. My daughter, struggled on and off for 10, 11 years. You know what I mean? It runs in my Pride family and many others' family who I know and very close relations with. And what I'm saying is it's not the way the media sold it. So Kirk was the one getting all the medication. I want to read you from the script here before I get into my notes, because that way they'll make more sense. And I don't know, maybe people like that a little better. According to Kirk, on Wednesday, April 20th, the day after the meeting, they reached out to Recovery Without Walls to get an evaluation. I want to say something because right there it says the day after the meeting. The day after the meeting. So Wednesday, April 20th, it is said in the media that after the plane landing in Moline, all the friends were concerned and they wanted to reach out to Dr. Kornfeld to get help. They don't tell you about all the things they did on the 7th and the 14th, which is what I'm going to tell you in a minute. but we're getting there. So, the meeting, let me jump back to that because I have some really good information on that here, you guys. So on the 14th, we have this emergency landing where it's reported that Prince went back to Paisley Park, tweeted out controversy, and the documentation within the file will tell you that he was at the Moline Hospital being seen by Dr. Mancha, who was treating a gunshot wound victim that evening, which would tell you he was at the one hospital as opposed to the other one that I discussed in the Moline video. Irrelevant to what I'm saying. Throughout the file, there's something going on. Now, because they had that landing, then the team expresses some concern about Prince having some opiate problems. They don't say what opiate problems, and that's where the naloxone, Suboxone, comes in, because before I get there, the 18th and 19th are in question, you guys. As you read through the file, I want to share with you a couple things because it goes to how huge the discrepancies are, and these are pretty huge, so I hope you listen up. These have to do with the evening of the 18th and the 19th, and that's what I meant when it said, according to Kirk, on Wednesday, April 20th, the day after the meeting. That's what meeting we're talking about. So that would be the 19th, right? Right. So Kim Pratt, the driver, she says that she's been the exclusive driver for at least 3 years. She worked for, she was Total Transportation, I believe she said, for 8 years. And then in 2014, switched to Premier Transportation, in which she became Prince's exclusive driver, Kim Pratt. So her testimony, both audio that's available online and I took notes on here. This is what she had to say about the 19th. One second. Kim further states that on the 19th, the last time anyone saw Prince alive in public was when she drove Prince and others to the Dakota Jazz Club and Calhoun Beach Club, Calhoun Square. It's on Crystal Ball. Calhoun Square. Calhoun Beach Club. He had dinner with friends, and then they went to the movies in Edina, where Prince rented out the whole theater. That Hannah, Josh, and the family were there. Hannah was pregnant and not drinking alcohol. Those were some of the things Kim Pratt had to say. So that was on the 19th. She then went on to say that she dropped, here's the actual, those were my notes. Here's the actual script. One moment. Pratt said she remembered that. Pratt told me she did not know anything about Prince using narcotics. Once in a while, he'd have a drink of alcohol, but that was it. I asked Pratt who Bakure, his assistant. Sorry, I misquoted that. I asked Pratt if she knew any of Prince. Man, I just stumbled over that big time. 1 second. Because that's not where it's at. My bad. Anyway, sometimes I do that. Anyway, she said she picked him up on the 19th, took him and the family to those places. Now, the meeting was supposed to have taken place on that day as well. Okay, now stay with me. This is part of Kirk's testimony. Kirk told me he did not see Prince on Sunday, April 17th. Kirk did not think he saw Prince again until Tuesday evening, April 19th, 2016, around 8 or 8:30, when they had a meeting with Prince, Larry Graham, Marone, and Kirk. Kirk said Prince had canceled shows on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday of that week, April 18th through the 22nd, because of what happened in Atlanta, and they were urging him to take a break. You mean perform, organ grinder, perform? Anyway, now, Larry Graham was at that meeting, but what's interesting, and I promised to get you there, was that Larry Graham I asked Graham to describe the night of April 18th, 2016. Graham stated Prince had just got back from a tour. Graham stated Prince looked tired from being on tour, but overall looked good. Again, addicts don't look good. I asked Graham if he had talked about the tour, and Graham stated Prince had talked about the tour. This is how it reads. Isn't that something? I asked Graham if Prince had talked about what happened on the plane trip home. Graham stated Prince didn't talk about the plane trip. My point is, you guys, the file says the 18th. Kim Pratt and Kirk said it was the 19th, but Graham said he was there on the 18th. And then Graham, I asked Graham if he had any conversation with Kirk Johnson and Marone about Prince's health, and he said no. Graham later told me that Johnson mentioned the emergency stop the plane made on the trip home to Minnesota. Now, the way that sounds is, to me, it sounded like even after they boarded the plane, which they waited for because the pilots were timed out because they were flying up to New York and stuff to pick up the pharmacist and do all the things with Renville Wellington. The pilots were timed out, Gallus and Betchel. And so then they had to wait for another plane. So then the way that Graham says Johnson suspected that Prince had taken something and that the plane had made a emergency stop. It made it sound different than the emergency thing for the whole drug thing. And that's what it makes sense in my own head, but it doesn't make sense when I say it out loud. So stick to the script. Anyway, if you listen to Larry Graham's, if you have the opportunity or you want to, I mean, I don't think you need to, but when I listened to his testimony on the, on some of the audios that are available on YouTube and stuff, he was really rude. He runs off to the bathroom with his phone, and like after they ask for phone numbers or email addresses or something like that. And so I found it interesting that this said on April 20th, the day after the meeting. You would assume that if they were having a high-level meeting, let's say that somebody thinks that Kim Pratt could have took him to all those places after the meeting, but why would they, the others, take all the time to come out there and have this big meeting? That's why they rented out the theater, you guys, because it's part of the plan. It's part of the action. It's part of the 19th being the last day that anybody saw Prince alive. That would also be the date of 4/19, which is 1914, World War I, which is also family name. You know, you've been here since 1914, and I also talk about it in the Gematria. Mark Metz says that there'll be no charges filed on 4/19 of whatever year that was. Pardon me. Bad idea. Anyway, my point is, among many others, let me talk to you about what Kirk did to get the medication and the way the media sold it as Prince Rogers Nelson being on this medication because he was in hip pain. Well, again, to reiterate, Schulenberg testified that Kirk contacted him in 2015 fall. Kirk says that he initially contacted him, Schulenberg, on the 7th, and there are texts available on the media to reflect that as well, that he contacted him on the 7th, which, you guys, the 7th is when the date of the first, that concert was, the Paisley Park After Dark or whatever, that got canceled. But think about this, and everybody says, oh, the flu or this or that, and then he's an addict because whatever, things didn't work out. But Kirk was busy contacting Dr. Schulenberg at 5:45 in the morning on April 7th, the day of the supposed concert that got canceled, right? Asking for fluids for Prince and this and that. And then they took him to the after hours North Memorial clinic that wasn't even, it's not just that it was closed after hours, it wasn't open at all. So they used that side. Read the files, it's all there. So on the 7th, the day, he's requesting medication and this and that. And in case you missed it in the other videos, it's pertinent to mention that Dr. Schulenberg had access to Valium in the office because he did vasectomies. So this is very important as well. When you look out there on the media, you're going to see in the available pictures 3 prescriptions that have the name Prince Rogers Nelson on them. That's how they sell you that it was him. One of those prescriptions is for hydroxine, the other is for clonidine, and the other one is for Valium. Now, Dr. Schulenberg got fined for prescribing Percocet, 15 Percocet on the 14th, but they don't tell you anything about him prescribing clonidine, hydroxine. He can get away with that because they're non-addictive or opiate. However, the Valium, that's another story. They don't tell you about that. But my point is about those 3 prescriptions that you'll see is that the media wants you to believe that he got Prince Rogers Nelson all 3 of those prescriptions when he went to the doctor on the 20th. However, if you took 3 prescriptions to the doctor, the prescription is going to come back to you in the order of their reference number on the top. 2 of those prescriptions are in order and 1 isn't. And that's because during an interview, Dr. Schulenberg says that he didn't know if Kirk picked up the other prescription because it was, well, he doesn't say why, but the reason he said that is because it could have been emailed in, faxed in, you know how doctors do, and or a refill. So they don't tell you about the Valium prescription or the fact that he had access to Valium for IV fluids in the office. So they were doing it on the day of the concerts. Now, on the 14th, you guys, I want to talk to you about how hardcore Kirk was going to get the medication. It says that, well, they don't even mention it in the media, barely, how he contacted Dr. Boo, the dentist, to get the Tylenol 3 with codeine, which was found disposed of in a trash can outside the Paisley Park Studios there, like nobody even needed it. That's what they said. And anyway, how hardcore he was getting it, you guys. On the 14th, when you look through the phone records, Kirk left an outgoing voicemail to Dr. Boo at 12:46 on the 14th, which is another day of the concerts. So Prince is having an addiction issue, and he's so sick, and he can't do this, and he has the flu, and he has this and that. Kirk, why are you calling the doctor on the 7th and on the 14th to get all these narcotics? So 12:46, he leaves a 12 minutes and 41 second message, an outgoing voice message to Dr. Boo. Do you leave a 12-minute voice message to your dentist, even though the file says that she said he was getting at her because of a cracked tooth? No. 12 minutes, 41 seconds. Incoming voicemail. This is really interesting, you guys. On the 14th, after the 12:46 with Dr. Boo, there's an incoming voicemail from Schulenberg at 1:03, 2 of them. There's no outgoing voicemails or texts from Dr. Schulenberg prior to 1:03 on the 14th, meaning he contacted Kirk first on the 14th. So what do you know about that? Anyway, incoming voice 1:10, Dr. Boo, 5 minutes long. 1:20, outgoing voicemail to Schulenberg, 7 minutes and 9 seconds. Sounds like some planning going on to me to get some narcotics. I don't know. What about you guys? 2:13, Kirk is contacting Let's Roll Film and Video. Let's make a movie. Let's pretend to be somebody we're not. Because golly, what are we doing with all that medication, hypnosis? How'd they keep me under for so long? I don't know. 3:26 p.m., he's contacting Jill Monet, which is really interesting because there's those publicized pictures out there of Jill Monet, who, Janelle, is very, very short like Prince and could very much be a lookalike for him playing clone. So she got real popular after he passed too. You know how they put in their time and do their thing. So dirty deeds done dirt cheap. Anyway, 3:26, he's contacting her on the 14th. At 4:40 is when he contacted Aviation Lifeline, which is the jet, on the 14th to go ahead and do the concert anyway. So that's when they got their itinerary. Barely. 7:20, he contacted Theo London. I'm sure that was about the after party on the 14th. And then at 7:30, there was an incoming call from Dr. Boo. So That's all on the 14th. I don't know how that shows Prince Rogers Nelson seeking drugs, but it sure does show Kirk Johnson doing a lot of drug seeking and doctor shopping. However, when you open up the file and you look at the media that is given to us to look at in the file, there's some kind of cheesy looking prescription thing that shows that Dr. Boo prescribed the codeine and that Dr. Schulenberg prescribed the Percocet. But in case you missed the other video, more interesting to note that the state of Minnesota has the Safe Script program where every single opiate and every single anything will be run through the Safe Script. It's the way opiates are run. But in the file, they provide this cheesy little thing that gives false information, is what I'm saying. So, still not Prince Rogers Nelson. So again, the phone records being off schedule, being in UTC time on the 14th to the 15th. Also, interestingly enough, in the file, it said that Dr. Schulenberg requested that Kirk pick up the prescription in person since it was just a one-time thing that he was doing. And that was around 2:30. But Kirk also was supposed to be leaving on the plane at 2:30. So, again, lookalikes, body doubles, invasion of the body snatchers. It's just it's a really big thing, you guys. Not only that, you guys, I don't know how you look at the pictures that are available online. Go look at the pictures. Look at the exterior photos during the investigation. Paisley Park is completely run down. All the flowers are dead. There's like no bushes. It's all rainy and hideous and awful. And, it's just, you could say it's April, but whatever. That's not my point. There's no plants. There's no anything. There's no nothing. Everybody knows, once an artist is gone, they're worth more money. So that was the plan, is to get rid of the artist. But you can't do that without controlling their music, empire, which, who had much bigger, the Beatles, and I don't know who else, if anybody. And now, then we have this Welcome to America trash coming out that wasn't, the real Prince was quoted as saying that anything unfinished was bootleg. So that it's trash. And speaking of the Welcome to America, you guys, the whole thing is a plan. It's part of the plan as well. The recent album. Because of the 21 to 22, and here we find ourselves in the new year, 2022, which in upside down gematria to me spells 1777. I feel blessed that I was feeling a lot of negativity around New Year's Eve and things that I haven't seen anything bad happening yet. Although I still know that something is coming. I just don't know what or when. You guys, what's interesting, I want to talk about Ray Roberts for a minute. I don't know, before I speak about him, when I was reading the Beautiful Ones book, should have had it right here with me. Dan Piepenbring mentions when he goes back to Paisley Park after Prince dies to collect the memorabilia and so forth, that is so lovingly laid out and easily accessible. If you listen to Prince back in the day, that he wasn't one to like collect, and he said once he did something, he didn't go back and watch it. That kind of thing is gone. He didn't care what the critics said. You might go back to learn, something, or like an instrument, or, something like that. But it wasn't about what he did. It's like once he did something, it was done and he was off to the next thing. That's why there's so much material. So, to have stuff lovingly laid out when Piepenbring came back to Paisley Park as memorabilia is another, slap in the face to, the cloning and the production of who they want the media to believe Prince was. But anyway, Bremer Bank. In the book, Dan says that they had lunch catered in while he was there getting the memorabilia, and that Bremer Bank, who was responsible for Prince's dietary needs, brought in lunch. It was well known that Prince was a vegetarian, and they brought in lunch. That's what he said in the book. However, in the media, we are told over and over again that Prince's chef, his name is Ray Roberts. And I haven't figured out if Ray's a good guy or a bad guy, because if I believe the hypothetical premise that I'm always being told, that the fentanyl was supplied, that this email becomes even more important about the bottle of probiotic water. So we're going to step back and talk about Ray Roberts for just a second. He owns People's Organic in Edina. I don't know if I'm saying that right. People's Organic, they too are run on an LLC. Imagine that, LLC, People's Organic, LLC, IDS, I think it says. Andrew Kornfeld has an LLC for his little self-professed millennial group, which I can't think of the name right now. People's Organic has an LLC. Even CVS Pharmacy, where Kirk Johnson's prescriptions came from, the vitamin D that didn't have vitamin D in the bottle, and the ondansetron, which didn't have that in the bottle either, came from CVS, which is never mentioned in the file either. But that CVS was run off of an LLC also. So they set up all these companies to do all the dirty work so that they can't be traced back to where they actually are. It's a lie within the lie. So Ray Roberts, the food looks good online. I checked it out. I probably like to throw down. But he and his wife sit on there, and I guess they still work at Paisley Park. So kudos to you. However, I'm not bashing. I never do. My several family members have been on Suboxone, and I don't see it as a dirty deed. What I see it as is another form of opiates. It's legal opiates. A methadone clinic is legal opiates, just like prescriptions, legal opiates. Okay. So the fact that ours truly, Ray Roberts, I hope I'm not telling any dirty deeds, but the truth must be told. On 1/25/17, I spoke with DEA Officer Baller and learned that they re-interviewed Raymond Russell Roberts. Officer Baller said that without their questioning, so I assuming I'm not telling any dirt, without their questioning, Roberts openly admitted to having a prescription for Suboxone. Suboxone is a prescription medication used to treat opioid addiction. Heroin and narcotic painkillers are common opioid drugs. Bupropion, Suboxone, belongs to a class of drug called opioid partial agonists, which help relieve symptoms of opiate withdrawal. Play a doctor on YouTube. Roberts admitted that he was a longtime opiate addict who was in recovery. Roberts told DEA Officer Baller that he had no idea that Prince was using any sort of drug, and in fact felt a little left out that Marone and Kirk organized a meeting with the California doctor without telling Roberts. Roberts said he had no idea they were seeking help for Prince. Roberts told Officer that Marone and Kirk were the ones who would deliver messages to Roberts from Prince, keeping Roberts' contact with Prince to a minimum. Okay. Now, this officer, the DEA, said that Ray Roberts said he didn't have much contact with Prince, that the messages went through Kirk and Marone. Keep that in mind. When this officer spoke with Ray, I asked Roberts if he was at Prince's studio on Wednesday, the 20th, 2016. Roberts stated Prince's assistant Marone told Roberts to bring Prince's food packed up. Roberts explained from time to time Prince would request his food to be brought prepared and packaged. Roberts stated on other nights he would prepare and cook meals at his home. Roberts stated he was at the studio around 7:30 p.m. Roberts stated he got to the studio early and waiting to get into the gate. Okay. So while he was waiting to get into the gate, he later stated that Prince and Kirk, here it is, hold on, that Roberts and Kirk Johnson, Prince arrived at the studio and pulled into the studio. They waved Roberts in. Roberts stated Johnson and Prince went to the rear entrance. This is to show you that there is the two entrances on the two investigations in the files. To the rear entrance, Roberts stated Johnson walked through the studio and let Roberts in the front entrance. So, get this. On TMZ, Harry Levin tells you that Prince was last seen about 8 o'clock on the 20th, getting dropped off by someone, but they didn't know who. So that wasn't, first of all, he wasn't getting dropped off. He was being delivered with Kirk and went to the back and into the front. So, this is interesting, you guys. Roberts stated he left Prince's food in the kitchen, where Roberts described as Roberts' kitchen per Johnson's request. He explained that there's a public side to the studio and a private side to the studio. Roberts described the kitchen on the public side as Robert's kitchen and the other kitchen as Prince's kitchen. So it's like they're playing house. Robert, everybody knows that Bob is short for Robert, and that's like Bob George. That's what it hit me as, Bob's Kitchen. And then we have, isn't that a name of a cartoon? But Bob's Burgers. So anyway, Robert stated that while he was at the studio, now he said he was there early, that Marone told him to be there around 7:38, but he got there a little early and he was sitting outside the studio and was waiting, saw him. And then while he was at the studio, because he had the prepared food, right? He brought the food prepared, so why did he have to go in? Just curious. While he was at the studio, Bakure and Johnson were sitting in the media room around a table. The round table. Robert stated they were talking. There's the name they again. They break the sentence. Bakir and Johnson were sitting in a media room around a table. Robert stated they were talking. That's not necessarily about the same people. They could mean anybody. That's not, some people might read it that way, but no, that's not the way that words get broke down. No. Mm-mm. Robert stated they talked about Roberts being early. Roberts explained that Bakir asked Roberts to be at the studio around 8. Roberts stated because he was early, he saw Prince arrive at the studio. Roberts stated when Prince isn't feeling good, he wanted his privacy. Roberts stated he left around 8:30. Roberts stated he had stayed at the studio to do some cleaning in the kitchen. Roberts stated when he left, Bakir and Johnson were still at the studio. So, you would assume that the media reported the last people to see him was 8 o'clock. They didn't know who that was. Chef Roberts, Marone, and Kirk were still there with they talking around the round table about why Ray Roberts was early and that he saw Prince arrive. Now, Prince Kirk. Anyway, he said Roberts stated he knew that Prince wasn't feeling well. I asked him to explain. He stated that because of the events of the past week, Roberts stated Prince was flying back from the concert and they had to make an unplanned landing. He didn't say emergency landing. He said unplanned landing. There's a big difference, okay? Because as I told you on the Moline video, if you haven't watched it, there was an emergency plane landing where they came in at 45,000 feet in 17 minutes. And then there was another landing talked about where the plane had to circle the airport, which doesn't usually have landings, for about 20 minutes before they were allowed to land. So that's definitely two different landings. Also, when Kirk contacts Kim Pratt from the hospital on the 14th, well, it'll be the 15th at 5 a.m., she asked him, because he called her at 5 a.m. and said that Prince was in the hospital with the flu, and she said, should I wait for the other plane? He said, no, go home. So, 2 investigations, 2 princes, 2 people. Check it out. So anyway, Roberts explained that Prince would communicate through phone or in person. Well, this officer just said that Roberts said that Marone and Kirk would do all the communicating, but this other investigation file says that I just lost my place. That they did the communicating. Oh, here it is. That would communicate through phone or in person. What's interesting is Robert stated the other individuals would comment that they would receive an email from Prince. Robert stated the ongoing joke was that Prince didn't use a cell phone. The ongoing joke. It's a joke that he doesn't use a cell phone, because every time somebody emailed him, they said that he was known to respond right back. Every time he texted him, as I told you before, he jumped on the plane with Dan Piepenbring and said, why is Prince in New York right now? He posted about the passport, had Instagram, Princetagram, Twitter, and you can say that he did it all from a laptop, but who's going to heave around a laptop all the time? It ain't going to happen. Liars. Anyway, I asked Roberts if people talked about Prince's health. Robert stated they talked about his health a lot. Robert stated his job to make sure Prince was eating right and drinking enough fluids. Blah, blah, blah. Robert stated Prince would report ailments such as a sore throat to Roberts, and Roberts would prepare food accordingly. Now, what's interesting about that, you guys, is he said several things there. That he did hear from Prince by email, that he didn't by phone. Everything is said there, so you have to decipher what you believe. But on the 19th, which was the last time, as we discussed earlier, that supposedly Prince was seen alive, there is an email from Prince to Ray Roberts asking for the probiotic water. And so then it's interesting that the blue water bottle that was found in the media conference room during the investigation sweep with the DEA on May 10th, they found a bottle half full of a clear liquid. It didn't say water, it said a clear liquid. Now, Ray Roberts having fentanyl patches, I'm not saying he did or didn't. And if he did, maybe it was to help. I'm just, hypothesizing. And if he had access to fentanyl patches on a regular basis, you can soak those in water and make a pretty high dosage. Could equal out to maybe 67.8 milligrams on a blood test, something like that. I mean, maybe he was trying to help, maybe not. I don't know. I don't really know all the answers. I know a lot of them I get shared with, but not like, everything. So what fun would that be? It's just like your Bible. You're supposed to investigate and want to be a good soul and a good person. You're supposed to care enough about this investigation that the Creator created for us to know that it's all a big lie and a big facade. And why wouldn't you look? Would you want to know that these corrupted organizations, real legions and trickle-on down effect had to do with ours truly? And all he wants to do is expose himself to you and love you. That's what we were created for, and that's what I was created for, here to come here and tell you this. This is bull, man. You guys got to listen up and share these videos, please. Anywho, so I don't know if Ray helped or if he didn't, okay? Because knowing what I know about what the Creator told me about the things that are done in the underworld, in the realms that nobody wants to discuss, in the paranormal jacked up situation, invasion of the body snatchers, man, these people wear skin suits, okay? I don't know how. I really don't. I remember in my life after life, if you ever watch any of those videos or if you don't, I remember being on the crossroad, and one way there was heaven and one way there was hell. And it's like I couldn't see it, or I could just sense it and feel it. But the way that hell was, I think I did get a glimpse, and it was like you get taken around on the Christmas Story when you go, so the afterlife situation. But I was shown in the hellish situation. Check this out, you guys. There's a Betty Boop cartoon out there from the 60s where she goes into hell. And is it Betty Boop or Minnie Mouse? I'll have to look it up. She goes into hell, and she's real cold. She falls asleep by her fireplace, and then she goes into hell, and she's able to melt all the bad people, or they can't affect her and stuff like that. So when I was in there, it was kind of like that. But when I was in there, or seeing it in the visual sort of way, what was shown to me is that, I don't know, the way that they trade souls during seances and weird stuff that is beyond my comprehension, they're able to appear as anything they want. It's like in the scary movies you watch, and your greatest fear is to hear somebody you love talking to you, and then you think you see them. Game of Thrones, they do it to Khaleesi and all that, and seeing her man. It's that kind of thing, but the stuff is real, you guys. It's real. Like, it just is. So, paranormal jacked up situation. So anyway, all the stuff that I was shown that was being done to him by way of his intellectual property, his brain powers being used and utilized, CERN, all the other things that I've talked about. It's been some really painful, disgusting, horrible stuff, and I was shown a lot of it. And so a person would consider taking that much fentanyl, I'm sure, and then some. However, when you're the creator, I'm sure that you can't die. And but you can sure as heck take enough fentanyl to make sure you don't feel any pain. Just a hypothesis. As I said, look at the pictures in the media being portrayed. They're made that way for a reason, whether people are using wax dummies, invasion of the body snatchers, clones, pictures. I've shared with you enough videos and enough clues to let you know it wasn't what the media put down. Anyway, Ray Roberts, he received that text on the 19th from Prince about the water, and they found the fentanyl water bottle. An aqua hydrate pH 9 blue transparent bottle. Aqua hydrate pH 9 is a probiotic water, very, very expensive on the scene in a big way. Half full of clear liquid, located on the bottom shelf of the middle cabinet. So, again, just a hypothesis there, you guys. And I found it interesting, again, like I said, that Dan Pfeifenbring reported that Bremer prepared the food, and that Ray said that, Ray was known to be the chef. So, I don't know who's telling the truth. Why they call it Bob's kitchen and his kitchen and everybody's kitchen. Why, when you go through the files, do we find out that Kirk was seeking all the drugs? PK, Prince Kirk, PK. If you do PK and gematria, it actually breaks down to MK Ultra. It's the same thing. Sorry. Interesting thing is, though, too, you guys, about the 19th, I need to backtrack when something jogs my memory. I already discussed the discrepancies between the 18th and the 19th. However, Kim Pratt said that she dropped Prince off, that they were out there at the theater, etc., with the family and so on. But then she says she dropped Prince off at 2 a.m. and dropped Marone off at Country Inn and Suites thereafter. But during the file, the text or the email from Prince to Ray that we were just talking about is at 10:56 p.m. So interesting to note that during the dinner or the show or the parade at 10:56 that he was texting about the water. Maybe an idea they had together to get it there. I mean, I don't know. Also, on the 19th are some emails that I mentioned previously. I don't know if it's from Natalia Phillips. At 5:51, 8:53, and 12:53. Now, again, 5:51, they say Prince responds, "I fell asleep." So 5:51 on the 19th, is Prince sleeping at 5:51 when they're having this big meeting and this and that and that? And then they text again at 8:53. And this is the thing that's really jacked up too, you guys, is the way that the media reads is this, and hear me out. At the media at 8:53, it says, okay is the best part of that response. But at 12:53, it reports, okay, talk to you later. So it reads out of order, but if you read it in order, it would be 5:51 text, 8:53, or excuse me, 12:53, and then 8:53. But the way they report the text, since they're cutting and pasting, they make the text go out of order. Somebody's not going to say, okay is the best part of that response before they say, okay, talk to you later, if you didn't catch what I was saying. Jacked up situation. I want to tell you guys something about Bridville Willington and Sean Powell before we leave. Before I leave. You might already leave. I don't know. I just dropped the piece of paper, dang it. Sean Powell, Kim Pratt, under questioning, said she knew She knew Renville, and she knew Julius. Here, excuse me, one moment. Don't let me misquote. I asked Pratt if she knew a Sean. No, wait, let me back up. I asked Pratt if she knew any of Prince's bodyguards other than Kirk Johnson. Bodyguard, that's a far cry from security head of manager and head of Paisley Park, okay? It's a far cry. If she knew any of Prince's bodyguards other than Kirk Johnson, Pratt said Chris Romeo Gaither and a guy named Julius. So we have Chris Gaither, who goes by Romeo. Chris Gaither is the one that said that if Prince ever did drugs, he didn't know it, okay? Because for one, he didn't wear pockets and he didn't carry cash. Chris Gaither was responsible for packing up his luggage and stuff like that at before and after concerts. Never saw any drugs, never saw any prescriptions, never saw a drug addict. And also that he would watch Prince walk up the stairs after in the evening at Paisley Park because he hated the elevator so much and called it Satan. So anyway, back to what I was saying. Other than Kirk Johnson, Pratt said Chris Romeo Gaither and a guy called Julius. I asked Pratt if she knew a Sean, and she stated she did, that she had met him in the past, but that it was such a big empire that it was difficult to get to know anyone. And then they ended the phone call. My point is that about Sean Powell, you guys, and I mentioned it before, Kirk's nephew. He is described as, 6 foot, 350, and an address of 7802 blankety blank in Bloomington, Minnesota. Okay? Now, Bloomington, Minnesota is where one of the prescriptions was picked up at the Walgreens. I have to go get the address. I don't know where it's at right now. I do have it, and it is factual. What I'm getting at is that somehow, some way, I'm not sure how, they were able to sneak this Sean Powell in. And I think it's Omar Baker, Prince's brother, that reports that it was reported that Sean Powell was actually the one who found him in the elevator. Although they're cleaning a stain on the carpet, I'm not sure. So anyway, Sean Powell is a mystery. And also throughout that mystery, it's interesting to note that all the witnesses in the Moline, both the pilots, flight attendants, and hospital attendees, when you talk to the drivers and stuff, and the media will want you to think that it was just Prince, Kirk, and perhaps Judith Hill on the plane. But then if that's accurate, why would the hospital staff and everybody keep referring to the bodyguard who was there and Kirk and the bodyguard? So what I'm saying about Kirk flying the jets that can fly up to 5,950 miles an hour at, I believe, 5,950 miles without stopping at approximately, I believe, 698 miles per hour. But pilots can't fly for more than 15 hours, I think it was. And that's why the pilots timed out, because somehow during the 14th and the 15th, in exchange of the Canadian pharmacists and the Canadian Renville Wellington, who had the Go phone, who also, it's noted by an officer that when going through Pharaoh's files, I mean, that that there was a $10,000 wire to a Canadian clothing store. And throughout the file, one of the agencies is actually researching the Royal Bank of Canada. So, as well, I mentioned that there was a New York set of keys in the pictures. So the fact that the Go phone calls were being made to New York and the pharmacist who called 28 times was in New York. It's all pretty interesting, don't you guys think? Does it sound like a plan to you? Sounds like one to me. I keep talking myself out, but I'm not done yet. I want to say I'm trying to be really brave and myself, and this stuff has been a trip, you guys. It's been a wild ride for the last almost 2 years now. In April, it'll be 2 years that I've been experiencing this paranormal, phenomenal I said phenomenal. That's what I meant. Wild ride that I'm on. It's excellent because the more I embrace it, the more I can feel it. I begged my family to start listening to me. I know it's hard to understand. No one person can be this scholarly, you guys. It's the divinity of the creator. It's the fact that everybody has a sole purpose, and this is mine. Mine happens to be what some might consider a bigger part of something, but it's really not bigger. It's just another branch of what needs to be done. And I said I would do anything, and I meant it. And I just can't believe it's almost been 2 years. And I just want to give thanks to our creator, because he really is blessing me and blessing all of us, you guys, by sending me here, because he's not going to be able to show himself until we start showing our true selves, our better selves, our without all the oppression, without all the media, without all the hurt, without all the shame, without all the he said, she said, and why are you mad because your kids, no, just go with the moment. You never know when your last moment is. My friends, had instances to go to the hospital recently. You can't have visitors in there. I'm hearing rumors that if you have a baby and it has COVID, they're going to separate it from the mother for 2 weeks. Do you guys want to live in that kind of world because of a cold virus? Like I said, I have the compassion. I'm not knocking. You can hear I'm a little bit sick, but I'm not going to be swabbed, and I'm not going to wear a mask because of some cold virus. Anyway, I just mean to say that they're separating people. They took away our graduations, school, marriages, weddings, burials. We don't live in the same world, you guys. It's because we're in the final generation. And whether you get to be a part of the next kingdom come, new world, you don't. I'm not sure who does and who doesn't. I don't know, but all I know is that the creator can't show himself until we start showing ourselves and embracing ourselves without the shame. That's what I was saying, without the I have so many reasons to be sad in my life, you guys. Like I just I'm just so grateful. You don't even know, amongst all the other things that I've been shown. I beginning in August, of 2021, July, August, I got evicted. I was living in hotels. I ended up living with my ex and, uh, his gal, and in a most grateful situation. And you just never know where life is going to take you. But mine is taking me straight to my soul purpose, even though, anyway, I have many, many reasons to be sad. I had lost my cats for a while. I got them back. Money, my son, he left sooner than we had to because of the eviction. Just all kinds of things that I have on me that can make me sad right now. But the thing that saves me, you guys, besides Hashem, the creator, obviously, this soul purpose. I know that that's part of the reason he told it to me in 2010 when I passed, because it's so big. And that, like I mentioned, if it would have just all came on me in 2020, I would have lost my mind and I wouldn't be able to sit here and talk to you right now. Plus, I had a lot of things to learn too. So even though I thought this process was going to be a little different, I'm grateful for every bit of the process. And I just want you guys to draw near to him, talk to him like your best friend, be honest. You can't step near him with a lie. It can't happen. If you don't understand that, and I'm not trying to be condescending in any way, your creator created you. You created your child, like, in that way. So when your kid is looking at you and they have chocolate on their face and they're saying they didn't eat the chocolate donut, and you're just looking at them and you love them so much, but you have to do something or they're going to keep doing it and it'll get worse. We can't go to our creator with chocolate on our face or our fingers, okay? So wipe off your face, wipe off your heart, look for your soul, realize that he gave it to you because he loves you. You, just you. All of us, he created us. Please go watch Rav Jor's new video. He talks about how the Creator created us when we were soft and wet. The vessels were still wet. It reminded me of the song Soft and Wet. So, like I said, not everything is about sex, you guys. It's just what it's sold because, it sells. So, thank you. I'm talked out and I need to blow my nose. I love you guys. Thank you for being here. Share the videos, please. Like and share and subscribe. I mean it. Bye.